Hi, folks. Welcome to our interview today with Jewel Showalter, who is the author of Finding Home, a memoir. Welcome, Jewel, and delighted to have you with us.
Thank
Just
you.
wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what the origins of this memoir, why, and why now?
Yes. Well, many years ago, I had started recording stories from my childhood. I grew up in Ethiopia, and it was just such a formative, impactful part of my life. And I realized that it was influencing who I am today. And I wanted to pass these stories on to my children and grandchildren. So years ago, even in a psychology class in college, I remember trying to analyze the way the boarding school experiences that I had were influencing me. And so just an awareness of that very impactful time of life. So then the project sort of fell by the wayside. Originally, I had been fascinated by the work of the author Laura Ingalls Wilder in describing her childhood on the Little House on the Prairie. And so I said, oh, that would be fun to use that and just write a story for my children when they were young. Of course, my children grew up and I became a grandma. And so I just decided, well, why don't I write my whole memoir in just parts one and two? And part one focusing on my childhood, and then part two focusing on my adult life. So that's
Was it
kind of a
easier?
little of the history of this mashup. And actually, it
Uh-huh.
was help from the writers group through Santos Books that helped me kind of come to some of those decisions. And so I found that very helpful.
Well, good. I'm glad you did, Jewel. Was it easier to write the first part, the second part, or were they equally, or what were the challenges of either part?
Yeah, I would say the second part was definitely harder because it was a longer block of time, and so being trying to decide how inclusive to be, it could have been a much longer book, War and Peace length, if I had tried to include everything. But it was helpful to just focus in on a theme like looking for a place to belong, finding a home, and using that as an orienting principle, as well as the various just spiritual encounters that I had with God along the way, a form of altars, Altars, and how they altered my life, Altered my life. And just looking back, that was a profound shaping device then in trying to decide what to put
Mhm,
in and what to leave
mhm,
out.
mhm, mhm. Joel, as you look back on the writing and as you're hearing from people, what are you hearing about the book? What did writing the book do for you as a person?
Well, it's always cathartic to write a memoir. It brings up the things that stick in our memory are often things that have deep emotions that are attached to them.
Mhm.
So some of them may seem trivial to the story, but they were things that impacted me emotionally that really stuck in my memory. And so those were some of the things that got shared. Times when I was, really thoroughly embarrassed or humiliated.
Mhm.
um, those kinds of things just got shared maybe more than others. So it's also very, I said, cathartic. It was also very sort of maybe testimonial, I might say. I felt the older I've gotten and the more I interact with Old Testament stories of how people forgot what God had done in their lives. And I just wanted to have this record for my children and grandchildren and anyone else that would be interested in
Yeah.
where I've seen the face of God and just how rich I feel as an old person now. And yeah, that legacy of passing on the faithfulness of God from generation to generation.
I don't remember if you mentioned Deuteronomy 6 in the book, and you probably did. But I was thinking about that this morning and just how much this was a response to what God asked us to do.
Mm,
And you were obedient and faithful to that. And
mm.
yeah, you just noted that now. Anything else you want to say about that, Jewel?
Yeah, I don't think I specifically noted that scripture, but it was definitely there in the back of my mind that I didn't want to forget, and I didn't want my children and grandchildren and everyone members of my generation too, as we look back on our lives. Um, just don't want to forget. And we're so forgetful.
So the book is selling very well, Jewel. It's selling through Santa's Books website on Amazon. I just love to hear your response to knowing it's selling well. That a lot of people are purchasing it. Any surprises about that?
Yeah, I'm surprised, and it's also kind of a vulnerable feeling, like I'm putting myself out there. In fact, one Ethiopian reader told me, he said, "Wow, you shared some bad things about your family." He said, "That's we wouldn't do that in our culture." And I was like, "Well, I guess time to get all the skeletons out of the closet, and I just want to walk in the light."
Yeah.
And but it is kind of, yeah, makes you feel a little naked.
Jewel, you're transparent. And yet I was so touched by the end of the book and the way you described the passing of Richard and your relationship. Um, and that may have taken people by surprise too. In fact, the photo of him towards the end of his life, and there was just an honesty about being human, about being a follower of Jesus that I just appreciate so much. I'm sure others do too.
Mhm. Well, thank you. And I don't expect to get rich off this book, but I am grateful if it can help to build other people up in their walk with God and helping them find a home in God, as I have.
Thank you, Jewel. Thanks for publishing with Santos. Thanks for being part of our book group, author group that meets each week. And we look forward to seeing how people respond to it in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you, Conrad, for all you've done to encourage and help this project along. Okay.